computer. There we go.
It sure is. I didn't get this the other day, and I had like a crisis because I'm like, oh, the lady didn't say anything. But I recorded, so
that's funny. All right, you guys ready?
yeah.
Welcome back to Marvel News Desk, your best place to keep up with all the latest news, reviews, and speculation concerning Marvel films and TV shows. We've got our usual crew today. We have, going clockwise on my screen, Rhiannon, myself, and Adam. I'm Caleb. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good. Going clockwise. They didn't even put you at the top left.
No, they haven't. I don't know why
Really?
on my screen. That's weird, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny. I actually have a mini like panic moment every week when I introduce us. I'm like, well, I could just do us alphabetically. That seems pretty fair. But then it always puts Rhiannon last, and I don't want that to seem sexist. So then I could put Rhiannon first, but I want Adam to feel like I'm like, I am sure I have thought about it a million times more than you guys ever would. But
believe it or not, go ahead.
Oh no, Adam.
I was gonna say, believe it or not, I probably won't quit if you introduce me last.
Okay.
Like, I don't think I care about that much.
So part of it is my graduating class from college. There were like 15 of us, 20 of us that were Bible majors of some kind, and we're all in alphabetical order. And through a terrible coincidence of life, the like 4 or 5 women in that class all had last names that ended with like ST or W. And so when we were all in a line, it totally looked like, oh, all the men graduate first in our Bible department and then the women. It was very icky feeling, and it was totally just the alphabetical thing, but I think about it frequently. It must have looked terrible.
I think you can forgive yourself for that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't my fault, but if I was in charge, I would have definitely changed things up, I think.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about Marvel stuff. We got a little bit of news this week. I'm going to start with what felt like the biggest news. We're getting reports out of Illuminati that Tenoch Huerta is going to play Namor in the MCU. Furthermore, and I think this is even more substantiated, they are trying to cast an Atuma and a Namora as well. And it seems like people who know what's going on suggest that their decision is that Atlantis is going to be like a derivative of like Incan and Mayan culture. And so they're looking largely for like Central American and Mexican and South American actors and actresses to play the Atlanteans. To me, that last bit's the most interesting part. How do you guys feel about these ideas? Oh, and that these people will all appear in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Are you guys excited about this direction for Namor?
If we go back and think about that episode, I mean, this was years ago at this point where we talked about what we would like for Namor. I think I said that I wanted Latin American Namor.
Yeah, I remember we talked a bit about like Caribbean Namor. Because like I remember I kind of liked, even though he's old, I liked like the Giancarlo Esposito Namor idea. But yes, we definitely talked about it being sort of Americas and Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean kind of. So yes, we have talked about something like that.
Yeah, so I obviously like that idea. I like the idea. I think there was something about it that he's going to be a villain character. I mean, or, you know, if not the villain of this movie, you know, definitely not a friendly from the beginning. I love that idea. I like I think I said this at the time. If not, like, it's what I'm thinking now. I still love the idea of Namor being like a militant environmentalist, you know, like this country has been at the bottom of the sea. We have been ruining the sea for decades, if not centuries now. And Namor's had enough. And why he would go after Wakanda, no idea. Maybe Wakanda's going after him. Maybe, it's more they discover Atlantis or something. But I like it. I like this whole idea.
It could be interesting if it turns out that in order to process vibranium, you have to like create a ridiculous amount of pollution to like actually process the metal, which I think would probably bother some people because Wakanda is supposed to be sort of utopian. And of course, they would care about the environmental stuff. But it would also set up a fascinating like contradiction where Namor's like, you have to stop messing around with vibranium because you're killing the planet. And they're like, if we lose our vibranium, that is going to really change our position in the world as well. Like, I don't know. I think that could be an interesting dynamic.
I also like the concept of there is no utopia. Like, okay, like Wakanda is amazing. And, obviously when we first go in there, we're like, everything here is perfect, but no society is perfect once you get below the surface. Nothing is black and white, nothing is fabulous. At all levels. So like, yeah, there has to be a downside to all of the stuff that they do in Wakanda, and maybe that's it. And maybe they don't realize that it's causing this damage. And there's a learning opportunity involved, but I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah. Adam, do you have thoughts?
Sure, no, you guys said everything, man. It sounds good. I mean, Namor makes sense. Namor is probably the biggest. We've had this discussion too. I think Namor is probably the biggest comic character that's never appeared in live action. So it's a matter of time when he does. So yeah, I fully believe the report. First off, and as for like the main culture aspect of it, yeah, I don't mind that at all. Naturally, of course. It'll be interesting. Aquaman 2 just revealed its name, and this is Aquaman 2's coming out right around Black Panther 2, I think. It'll just be interesting to how they design Atlantean culture and such. Are we going to do the earthy Thor type route, Thor 1 type route, the Eternals route, the natural colors with all the other underwater establishments and stuff? Are they going to do Naboo or Atlantis and Aquaman type with the neons and stuff? That's just personal preference on how it looked. I loved what Aquaman did, and they kind of almost went Thor Ragnarok-y, but underwater, and I really enjoyed that. I have a big problem watching underwater movies because like open water's my biggest fear. I'm not sure if we've discussed this, but I absolutely hate open water. So I do have a little bit of a panic once they go underwater, especially if it's like all dark, like how Zack Snyder introduced what's her name, Mara, and the Snyder Cut, if you will. I forgot totally. Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's just dark and in the middle of water and stuff. So maybe that's why I liked Atlantis and Aquaman so much, because there were lights and cities and things like that.
I just love how that explains why you live in Iowa. Like if you don't like open water, Iowa is the place to be. It's about as in the middle from the oceans as possible.
I mean, I'll go in like the ocean, like off the beach, but I won't go like. I have
open water. Yeah, no, open water is different.
I have no desire to go out there.
Yeah,
like I don't mind lakes. Like go boating and go tubing and fall off the tube. It's all right. But
so like really open water is what scares you, like the open sea. Like you aren't
like flying over the ocean in a plane and crashing in a plane and being like the lone survivor in the middle of the sea.
Yeah,
is my worst fear.
Okay,
that's interesting.
But just
yeah.
Just being stranded in water, or
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my thanks for therapy, guys. That's my that's probably my worst fear. That or heights. I don't care about heights.
Oh.
It's interesting you talk about Aquaman. I feel like that really is a challenge for them, and that like Aquaman has come out first. It has sort of established a way of doing superhero underwater stuff and a version that people like.
Mhm.
And so like Marvel's a little bit in a corner. If they do something that seems too similar, of course, outcome though, oh, they
Yeah,
just copy all the DC
it's going to
stuff.
draw comparisons regardless because
Yeah.
Aquaman came first and Namor comes, but it makes sense. I mean, they're equals, I guess. They're the Superman in the Hyperion, or the Superman in the Sentry, or the Superman in the Blue Marvel, or the Superman in the whoever the hell you want to call it, or the, dare we say, Batman and Daredevil,
Mhm.
or if you're certain people on the internet, Batman and Moon Knight.
I see. I'm a Batman and Moon Knight guy more myself.
Are
Like,
ya? Nah, I'm
oh
Batman and
no, my
Daredevil.
theory about Sentry and Moon Knight is that Marvel said if characters really had the psychology of Superman or Batman, they would be severely mentally ill. And that's how we got Moon Knight and Sentry, is just to like prove like, no, these characters are really
Yeah,
not, don't make any
I
sense.
see that. Um, but then you have Squadron Supreme, where they are blatant ripoffs of the Justice League.
Yeah.
So Superman and Hyperion's always a fair comparison. Um, it's always good. There's always going to be the comparisons, man. There's going to be Moon Knight comparisons with Batman because he's probably, with the Marvel Studios budget, they're probably going to add in some of that billionaire playboy type characterization.
And those are going to come out pretty close to each other, I think. I mean, I haven't considered it, but I think the new Batman movie and Moon Knight will probably be first quarter of next year, right?
Yeah, it's shaping up to be at least. Um, we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm really interested to see what the design is. I mean, Wakanda looks beautiful, and how they gave each tribe its own flair, or its own dress, or its own color, or its own um, look. We know what Marvel does, and Marvel makes an equal villain, right? So why wouldn't they replicate that stuff for Atlantis and Namor and things of that nature? Equal. Interestingly enough, Namor's latest kind of story arc goes right into what you guys talked about with the environment killing. And I can't remember if you've been reading Aaron's Avengers, but that's kind of what Namor got into with that, and launching a war against the surface world. And Black Panther just so happened to be involved.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, that's the easiest route to go, at least.
Well, and when you talk about world building, that's the part that's the most exciting to me. Is we kind of had heard that Namor might be in Black Panther 2. The fact that Coogler is the one who's going to handle building out Atlantis, to me, is great, because I think Coogler did the best job creating an entire world and doing all the stuff you talk about between costume and story, and iconography. Just like the fact that Wakanda was like a fully fleshed out world, the idea that you hand that same director Atlantis, I think, is awesome. And
Absolutely.
it solves a problem in a way for Marvel, in that, as they have made Black Panther, and as they have made Shang-Chi, and as they do all these different movies that really highlight filmmakers and actors and people from various kind of cultures or races, there's been kind of a question of like, when are we going to get some kind of um Latinx type character? Like, when are we going to give the love to, people from the Americas other than, white dudes named Chris? And like, when we've talked about that, like, we've thrown around some characters. People talk about White Tiger, they talk about um uh Sam Nova, like, there's been discussions of those kinds of characters. But I think Marvel is going to jumpstart their sort of Central and South American representation by doing this spin on Namor. And it's going to give them an outlet for some of those things that people have been kind of clamoring for, like, when are we going to get the same kind of attention on some of these geographical areas that we have on Africa in Black Panther, and then as we're seeing with, Asian culture in Shang-Chi. And I think it is kind of cool that Marvel created the option. Like, I think they looked at their properties and didn't see a great opportunity, and so they almost created one by doing this with Atlantis.
Yeah, Sounds good, man.
I mean, and I was just thinking, I mean, they are kind of covering around the globe, so we've got Africa and we're going to have Asian representation with Shang-Chi, um, Winter Soldier, I mean, not Winter, Black Widow, Russia, uh,
Miss Marvel's gonna do the
Miss
South
Marvel's going to do,
Asian kind
yeah,
of,
we're going
yeah.
to get, yeah, the Southeast Asia, and then we'll have some South American representation. So they really are like covering the globe, with this direction. Can we just give Thor Australia?
Yeah, I was about to say with Australia, it's just Chris Hemsworth. His biceps are
I
large
mean,
enough
just
to represent the entire continent.
Chris Hemsworth is giving us the Australian
Well,
representation. I
and
don't feel like Australia is underrepresented in life, but
well, for that matter, though, the fact that Thor is also directed by, a Maori director from
Pacific
New
Islander,
Zealand.
yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
all leads to Alpha Flight, guys. And then the globe will be covered.
Where's our Canadian coverage?
Yeah,
Correct.
where's the... There we go.
But then, I mean, they had to get rid of the flag smashers before they could do this global coverage.
Yeah.
True.
Another bit of casting this week just came out yesterday, I think.
2 days ago.
2 days ago. I'm sorry. Jamila. Correct? I always forget which name's first.
Jamila.
I knew I was going to screw that up. Jamil has been cast as Titania in She-Hulk. This is, I think, really fun. Most people I know that know her have kind of really enjoyed what she did, particularly in The Good Place. And now we have sort of a potential villain with She-Hulk. I'm really struggling how much She-Hulk is going to have an overarching story and how much of it's going to be kind of like case of the week, so it'll be interesting to see kind of what's going on there. But obviously the actress, physically looks quite a bit different than Titania does in the comics. That's nothing new. I mean, that's something Marvel's doing a lot. And I think a lot of people are very excited about that. I don't know. You guys have thoughts on this casting?
One can confirm the report. She is Titania.
I mean, Variety confirmed it as well. Not
Right.
that you're not
Variety.
This is what's so interesting about things is that, you just sit on stuff until someone runs it and then everyone else can run the things confirming the thing everyone's been sitting on since, February. I do not think people understand just how wide-reaching She-Hulk's going to be. She-Hulk is going to be probably the most, is encompassing the right word? The most far-reaching series that we've seen to date. It's going to be a courtroom drama, but it's going to be a courtroom drama that draws from characters from other dimensions and all corners of space and all... Like, it's not Law and Order SVU or not Law and Order.
It's not Night Court.
Yes, it's that with aliens and other sorts of interdimensional beings, and it's going to be absolutely insane.
So in other words, for somebody who like you, Adam, who's really into like cosmic Marvel, this show is going to be more in the wheelhouse of such people.
I'm just saying it's not going to be people arguing in court. It's going to be hilarious, probably, with the situations they get into. And I see, if anything, like I see Mephisto dressed up in a suit sitting on the stand, just that type of stuff, or some alien.
People started on Mephisto.
I'm trying to think of the most reasonable, or what I'm saying, like Taserface sitting on the stand as a witness in a suit. Just silly stuff like that. I didn't mean to call She-Hulk like a cosmic type property. I think the director reported last night even that Scar's going to be in it. The Hulk, the Incredible Hulk son from Planet Hulk. So we'll see. Well, it's going to be crazy, I think, and there's certainly going to be all sorts of Elaine Benes appearance moments.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be cameo rich, is what I'm getting the sense of.
Very.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Feige did say back at the investors call, you never know who's going to drop in type thing. You know, he sort of pitched this as it's going to be a cameo rich show. This also was broken by Illuminati. So if people are uncertain about that Namor story, this was broken by Illuminati and confirmed by Variety like within an hour or two.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and
Comic Book ran it between the two.
I'm not sure. I just knew we confirmed it. I didn't even know if we
Yeah.
ran it or what. But
I just thought it was very interesting that Variety put it out as though they were just reporting it as news. They didn't reference Illuminati. They didn't, it became a Variety story within hours.
of course it did. I'm sure Deadline reported it the same exact way.
Oh, I researched this, Adam. So this was very frustrating. You're right, Rhiannon. Variety's approach was it was the parentless story. It's like, oh, we can confirm that the story that she is in the show is correct. No reference to where the story came from or why anyone's talking about it. Just we can confirm it's right. Deadline then reported that Variety has confirmed this is happening with no reference. THR of all people, they gave credit, and they also gave credit to is it Giant Freaking Robot or Big Freaking Robot?
Yeah, which is
I know, but so they reported this story before even Illuminati did.
Back in
and
May,
so yeah, a while back. So Adam, it's interesting you say this. So people want to hear from reputable sources stories. I feel like more and more we're not going to get breaking news from reputable sources. We are going to get breaking news from tiny websites like Giant Freaking Robot, and then Variety will confirm them, right? Like, because as you said, it seems like a few people may have known that this casting happened, and that anyone who was official and knew it was asked not to talk about it. And it finally took a smaller site to take the gumption to share the thing that everyone else wasn't sharing.
Correct. To humble Illuminati a little bit, they're mostly accurate. 2 days ago, they just ran Elijah Wood is the villain in Toxic Avenger, and turns out it's actually Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
So just take everything with a little bit of salt. What? Yeah, man. I don't. People know stuff, and people just can't run it because of certain things, and these little sites can because the Illuminati doesn't have any access. So
Right.
what do they have to risk or lose? You look at our bud, Charles Murphy, and even they've kind of pulled back on stuff too because they get to sit down with Kate Herron and Michael Waldron, man. That's why what we should do. Let's
You want to just drop a scoop and become big time?
That's what I was going to say. Let's just drop something or threaten to drop something, and then we'll just email something so one of you two can get interviews with showrunners and directors from here on out. But
yeah,
it's one, it's terrifying that every major, with the exception of the Wrap, if you want to call the Wrap a trade, Deadline, THR, and Variety are all owned by the same people, and that's unfortunate. Deadline, whatever, man. Deadline's nothing more than TMZ, and I'm probably ruining my career or some opportunity for saying that. Deadline's never been more than TMZ on drugs, man. You read through some of their stuff, and you can't call it. If you say I'm not a journalist because I write about Mountain Dew, you can't say most of that's journalism because it sounds like it's written by AI or a robot or something like that. It's just unfortunate that Hollywood it's a game, man. Stans and fans have turned the Marvel Cinematic Universe into a game, and it's just so weird that people are so after these scoops and such and all this stuff. But this isn't the first, this isn't the only thing people know that they're sitting on and waiting to run or waiting for the okay and stuff. And
yeah, I guess my big
my
big thing with it is more and more I hear people who I guess have gotten like burned by things that didn't come true or didn't happen the way they thought it would. They're like, I'm not going to believe anything unless it comes from Marvel directly, or I'm not going to believe it unless a trade says it. Increasingly, from what I'm observing, trades are going to tell you nothing. They know stuff that they are not going to reveal, because like you said, at this point, if you're close enough to know things, you're also close enough to have press access that's going to get revoked if you share things that you know. And so if you like scoops, if you like to know things ahead of time, they're only going to come from the little guys. Like the big guys are not going to be sharing anything except for what they're asked to share by Marvel. So
and the unfortunate thing there is the scoops might not, I mean, they won't always be accurate too. By the time they get to the little guys, maybe they're no longer in talks, or they're no longer doing something or something like that, But,
yeah. All right, Adam, you mentioned there is rumors that Scar is going to show up in She-Hulk, Hulk's son. I have seen this very unusual thing on Twitter where people are like, well, we never saw that Hulk was in a relationship on Sakaar, so that'll come out of the blue. And I'll be like,
wait
oh,
till people realize you don't have to be married to have sex.
Did they not see Hulk's bed?
My favorite thing was Charles Murphy was like, I didn't see Cap's parents bang. It doesn't mean he doesn't exist.
She-Hulk first MCU sex scene. Just
so
gratuitous alien sex. Oh.
It is bizarre. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, just extending the She-Hulk. Like, if it really is Titania and Scar and Abomination, like, that is a pretty wide ranging CGI heavy bunch of characters to show up in a show that's been sort of pitched as like Ally McBeal too, like it's just it's fascinating. I feel like more and more I learn about this show, the less and less I understand what it is. So
and that's the thing, man. If we're talking villain of the week or something, and you're talking Abomination, how often is he actually going to be Abomination? If he's on trial for something or he breaks out, he's not going to be Abomination for all 30 minutes. Even then, it's 30 minutes. And how much of the 30 minutes, how many shots are actually going to require?
Cosmic custody battle just sounds like what Marvel should have in their procedural.
Oh,
right.
Man.
How is
show.
Bruce Banner? How is Bruce
like,
Banner not going to, pay child support or something? That's what the trial.
Right.
About.
I mean,
they come after him, like making him pay child support for like Bruce Banner. He's like, that was the other guy. It was the Hulk. It wasn't me.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe Banner discovers that this child exists and wants help getting, I don't, I mean,
or he's fighting for paternity rights or something, like weekend visits with Scar.
I think this is how they turn an attorney show interesting for Marvel, is exploring all of these crazy, like, yes, like I think some of us would love to just see the legal implications of the blip. But your average everyday person wants to see an intergalactic paternity battle, like with the Hulk and some alien on Sakaar, or, who knows?
Yeah.
And it also will give us a chance to see this amazing bed. I mean, they built the amazing bed for Hulk for Thor Ragnarok. Like, one of my first thoughts was, oh, that bed will finally have another purpose in the world. Like, it was a pretty amazing prop.
Sure does.
All right, let me throw in a couple of other things that came out this week. Black Widow tickets finally went on sale. That's cool. We have a Spider-Woman in Spider-Man multiverse, the Spider-Verse sequel. Spider-Woman is going to be voiced by, is it Issa Rae? Is that her name? I am desperately scanning for it and I cannot find it. I believe so. She was in a movie with Kumail Nanjiani during lockdown on Netflix. Anyway, so she is going to be our new Spider-Woman. And then also we're hearing that Echo is going to be filming a lot faster than we thought. and is actually in front of movie shows like Ironheart in the production pipeline. So is any of that interesting to any of you?
Speaking of like Atlantis and stuff, and the world building and all this stuff, it's crazy to think anyone can get a spinoff, man. I mean, how do you say Alakwa, right? Alakwa
Mhm.
Cox.
Mhm.
Must have done such an amazing job that they gave her her own series. You know, I mean, Namor could have his own film franchise. There's the World of Atlantis on Disney Plus or something. You know, so it's crazy to think that they can do all this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's all the directions that they're going and that they can go.
Yeah, it makes me think that Hawkeye is a little more pregnant with meaning for the future of the MCU. Like, I think when I heard a Hawkeye show was coming, in my brain, it was a little bit like Loki, as far as like my assumption was, oh, well, that's a character people like, and it'll get them views. And so they're going to use this character and do kind of a throwaway side story with them. And I don't think that's what's happening at all. I think Hawkeye really is going to launch us into some new and fascinating things. I think Loki has definitely been that case of that. We'll see that in a minute. Like, Marvel's not doing anything by mistake. And I think that when they started handing out Disney Plus shows, it seemed like candy. You know, like it was Oprah. You get a show, and you get a show, and you get a show. It felt arbitrary to me, and I was completely wrong. It's not arbitrary, and they've got some interesting plans of where stuff's going.
But didn't they very early on Hawkeye say that it was going to be Kate Bishop? That it was going to be introducing that? Or did.
I think relative. I mean, certainly when they officially announced it at Comic-Con 2 years ago, there was Kate
Yeah.
Bishop in the promo art.
Okay. All right. Which to me like kept a little bit different. I think Loki, yeah, I don't know. Loki, it's just so funny to think back when we thought it might be animated or kid Loki, or we had no idea what they were doing with this.
Well, and I thought, I mean, this transitions well to the Loki talk. Like, I really thought it was going to be like a dumb time travel show. Like, honestly, what I thought it was going to be was what Agents of Shield season 7 was. Like where every week they pop up in a new decade and they all put on funny clothes and they make a few jokes about the decade they're in, and then they pop over to the next one. Like, that's what I thought Loki was going to be. So
That was one of my favorite. I enjoyed that season of Shield. Like thinking back on it. I've recommended people skip seasons and go straight to 7.
What?
People that like don't want to watch all of Shield, but maybe they loved Agent Carter. I've recommended they just jump to watching the final season of Shield.
We are rewatching Agent Carter with our kiddo, and I find it boring. Like the second time through, it is slow and tired and traditional and ugh.
It took me years to get to season 2 of Agent Carter. Remember? Like I watched that season 1 and I had no desire to watch season 2. And like once I finally watched season 2, I loved it. But season 1, man, it was rough.
Shield is the scrub situation. Anything after season 5 doesn't exist. Like season, what was it? Season 9 of Scrubs, or what? That's Metal School or whatever.
That's why I tell people that they can jump to season 7, because like it doesn't exist. Like all of that other stuff through the year. I mean, like if you're not going to go and watch those first seasons because you didn't enjoy it, go ahead and jump to getting to see Sousa and that stuff because you enjoyed Agent Carter.
Yeah. Right. All right, talking about TV shows, let's talk about Loki. How'd you guys feel about the first episode of Loki?
Yes, I had a question real quick. I was looking at Fandango. When is Black Widow on Disney Plus? Is it at 3 a.m.?
No.
For Premier Access.
I would assume it's
on Premier Access, right? Or is it not?
It is. No, it's on Premier Access. You can pay $30 and watch Black Widow the day it comes out. And I assume it's the same time as everything. It'll be 3 a.m. on Thursday evening.
Because I noticed like earlier screen times.
July 9th.
Yeah, the fastest, if you want to see it as fast as humanly possible, then like 5 o'clock in the afternoon Thursday in a theater is the fastest way you can see it.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Normally there's 7 o'clocks here.
I took a chance and got my ticket at 7 o'clock. I could have gotten the 5 o'clock ticket, but just in case I work late.
Yeah, we're gonna be there 5 o'clock. I'm excited to be back in a movie theater for a Marvel movie. So
Yeah.
I wasted my return on Cruella, but that's a different story for
Oh, I just went and saw some indie flick, like with no purpose, like
Yeah.
on a Tuesday night. And I'm going to go see In the Heights this week. But I have my ticket to see Black Widow at the Alamo. So we'll see.
Are you guys still wearing masks outside?
no,
No? Okay.
Yes.
in New York you are.
Well, I mean, you don't have to wear them outside. I mean, when it's hot, no. I don't know. When I did that outside, I went to this thing at the cemetery where like the Philharmonic was playing in a cemetery, and they made you wear your mask the entire time, and it was outside and it was like 80 degrees. And that was no fun. I was not happy about that.
The big debate for me is picking the kids up. So they do outdoor release of the students. So we're all outside and you don't have to wear the mask outside, even if you're a child now, according to the CDC. But the kids have to wear them at school. And there is a lot of people sort of congregated. And so I'm still wearing, like, I carry it to the school. And when I get to school grounds, I put it on. And then once we're off school grounds, I take it back off. But
And that's what I do, a lot of like walking through the streets with my mask. So I have my summer mask, which is like the one I wear to the gym and everything. It like wicks away moisture and stuff. I keep it in my hand because like I'm popping in a store, pop it on, popping out of the store, take it off. I mean, when winter comes, masks are just going to be a thing in New York because they keep your face warm.
yeah,
Right.
And, you know, like honestly, when I was taking it off between stores, I would forget to put it back on. And, I was just leaving it on because that was more convenient.
yeah.
But now that it's hot, I just like hold it in my hand and then I pop it on. But
Yeah, when we took our sailing trip, I think everybody on the boat was supposedly vaccinated, so we
Yeah.
didn't have to wear masks. But when it got real brisk on deck, it was like, oh, let me just put this back on to keep my face warm.
yep. Yeah.
No, I was just curious. I keep mine in my pocket. It helps actually living in a spot that where they believe in science a little bit, now. So it's just, judge it on a case by case basis. If everyone's in the Aldi spread out getting groceries and they're not wearing masks, it's like, hey.
See, I may be controversial. I feel like the science thing cuts both ways.
Mm-hmm.
When they told us put on your masks and people wouldn't put them on, come on, guys, let's believe in science. But the flip side is when the CDC says you don't have to wear those anymore. And we're still like, oh, I feel more comfortable with it on. You're not believing in science then either. To me, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If they told us it was safer to keep it on and then they told us it's safe to keep it off, I got to listen both ways, I feel like.
Well, my thing is, it doesn't actually hurt anything to have on a mask. And in the meantime, well, I mean, like most stores here have a sign up saying they're required. So like, doesn't matter what the CDC says, there's rules that you have to have it on. There was a study of the New York City transit system that like in a subway, you should probably always have a mask, not because of COVID,
sure,
but because of the air quality.
Because they're gross, because subways are kind of disgusting in a way.
And like, I don't know if anybody's ever stood on a subway platform, but there's no airflow. There's like the 2 seconds of the train coming in and then it's just stagnant, gross. Yeah, so probably always going to wear a mask in the subway, except for when it's 100 degrees. Whether you need them or not. I mean, whether you need it for COVID or not. Like it doesn't hurt anything to have the mask on is kind of where I am. And honestly, here so many places have like their own mask rules that I just default to them being required and have it with me. I have like a spare one in my purse. I have, my summer mask that wicks away. I have some thicker ones for winter. Like, yeah. Look,
Cool.
if any of our listeners stuck through for all of this and Caleb didn't edit it out and you are having issues with masks
It's
because they're so uncomfortable,
right.
talk to me because I have tried every mask on the planet to try to find the most comfortable ones.
It's just I think the restaurant aspect of it's insane because here the restaurants still require you to wear a mask, but you go sit down and you can take it off. You know,
Yeah, you
it's like,
basically have to wear it from the front door to the table. Yeah,
so why? But I'm sitting to someone right here at this table. You
I
know,
know.
what's going on? It's just bizarre. And
That's where it does feel like, and I'm not this guy usually. That's where it does feel a little bit like a weird power play. Like, no, if you want to eat at our restaurant, you must wear a mask for 13 seconds before you sit down. You know, like, I mean,
Mhm.
sure, I guess I understand the principle. It's just practically, who cares if you're going to let them rip it off the second they sit down, you know?
plus, it's like our
Well,
first time dealing with it, so I don't fault people
yeah.
for
Yeah.
stuff that doesn't make sense. But it's just it's unique, you know how some people think rules, you know, try to make the rules. And all I'm saying is we're all screwed in the zombie apocalypse. That's
Yeah.
that's
But I shared a fascinating article when it comes to like the indoor mask wearing and all of that about how it really did sort of say, you know, the science, you know, you can't always. There was so much in the scientific community regarding aerosols and the way things travel in the air. Did you guys read the article? I shared it on
Uh-uh.
Facebook like a few weeks ago. So like the medical community has always just been like, these diseases are airborne, these diseases are not, because the particles have to be over this size to be airborne or under this size to be airborne. And it was just sort of an accepted thing in the medical community. And the COVID-19 particles were over that size. So through all of this, they were like, it can't be airborne. It can't be an aerosol. It can't just be in the air because it's over this size. And there was an air quality engineer that actually like studied aerosols, not from a medical perspective, but from an air pollution perspective. And they were like, no, we have stuff 10 times that large that's airborne, you know, in our air, you know, like it's commonly known in the air quality control industry that the size particles. And they started digging down, and there was like one study in the 40s with, I think, tuberculosis or something, that particular disease was that size particle, and they studied that size could be born as an air, you know, could be an aerosol. And somehow through people referencing that, and then through the years they stopped referencing that study, and it just became common in the medical community that this size particle was the threshold for airborne. So like in the early days of COVID, like I mean in the early months, like it actually only really officially got accepted by the medical community a few months ago. They absolutely, like those early days of, you know, wearing masks doesn't really matter, and the 6 foot distance makes no difference, um all because of these aerosols. Which is all to say, in the restaurant, like the distancing doesn't matter. If you're indoors, you probably need a mask, because it's more about the air filtration, the air moving and all of that, than it is like the distance. That 6 foot distance is assuming these particles fall out of the air. But once they're aerosols, that distance doesn't matter. What matters is that there's good ventilation in the building. So that's my little education rant. I could find the article and share it with y'all again. But
Awesome.
and that's been our main discussion on COVID-19.
sorry,
Thanks for
guys.
listening to
That's
I
cool.
started it. Sorry.
It's all my fault. Yeah, it is my fault.
So what'd you guys think of Loki?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on Loki. I thought it was enjoyable. Like I don't have a lot of thoughts, positive or negative. Like Hiddleston is lovely. He did an amazing job. All of the I mean, everything about it was lovely. I went to rewatch it after I actually plugged in my TV. I had to plug in my TV to watch Loki. So I watched it the first time on my phone. And I got like halfway through and I was like, I don't really need to see this again. Like, I know some people have said that they thought it was too much exposition. I think we're going to always see a little bit too much exposition because the MCU is so big that you're going to assume people are coming into something for the first time. But I found an enjoyment. So far, the time travel is hand wavy enough that I'm just like, okay, you know, like it doesn't matter. There's these characters off screen. They're deciding the timeline. Everything else doesn't matter. We'll go with it. I loved the use of the Infinity Stones to bring Loki into, you know, like acceptance of whatever's going on. Yeah. That. What did you guys think?
Caleb doesn't have thoughts.
No,
He's
I
just being
do.
polite
I
or
was gonna
whatnot.
let you. I
Oh,
was, yeah, it's being
it's a
polite.
it's a gorgeous show. Whoever did the production design, killer. I love the. I don't even know what era is it. Is it like 70s wood paneling type stuff? Is it
It's like
80s,
60s.
60s?
I think it's a mixture. I mean, the animation style I think was more pretty early,
And
like late 50,
that's
early 60s.
these shows are turning into just like Kevin Feige's weirdest dream box where he's like, I'm gonna put everything I liked about as a kid in these shows. Did it with WandaVision and that timekeeper explanation was fantastic. Um time, and that's the thing. We're sitting here worrying about time travel, and I don't think they're ever going to explain the actual time travel. The TVA does it just because they can. You know, they don't need the quantum realm and these fancy suits and all this stuff that we spent 2 hours watching them build in Avengers Endgame. They can just do it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. The last scene there in Oklahoma, where they're like, "Oh, it's just some guy with a time machine trying to like stake oil." Like that just happens every day. Like the TVA constantly comes across people who figured out like it was not this monumental achievement of Tony Stark that only the most brilliant man on earth could figure out. For the TVA, there's some idiot with a time machine all the time, you know?
Right. Yeah, I guess I didn't have any major. There's all sorts of time travel related stuff we could get into, including a bigger one. I think a bigger one that's so nitpicky that we'll probably lose all of our subscribers. Um, I enjoyed it though, man. I enjoyed it. Watch next week because next week is a significant leap. If you fell meh this week, Rhiannon, I think you'll
Yeah.
don't quit the show.
Oh, I'm not quitting the show. Well, that's
Don't
what I'm
quit the
saying. Like
show.
it didn't. I don't have strong feelings either way right now. Like, I mean, I'm going to keep watching the show because
what's his name? Eugene Cordero, I think is his name. Pillboy, and he's on Tacoma FD, and he was on that one episode of The Mandalorian. Peak timing. Like, wait.
Yeah, the guy who the guy they check in the Infinity Stones with, right?
Right. I'm just trying to.
Oh, the guy that doesn't know what a fish is?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fish.
Yeah.
Okay, the fish. I was going to bring the fish moment up. I wasn't sure if it was this week or not.
Yeah.
Yes, the fish moment.
Yeah.
No, just hilarious. The TVAs. That's the thing. What is the TVA? Where's the TVA? Is the TVA in the quantum realm? Is the TVA outside of reality completely? Is the TVA just a skyscraper in New York City and this is just all a ruse? You know, like, are the timekeepers real? Is Mobius real? Is Judge Renslayer real?
To me, the fish thing really, like, that had a huge point of they're not of this world. Like, they're not of Earth. They're not worldly or cosmically, you know, like they know really nothing about Earth.
It's kind of like, to me, like Ted Danson's character in The Good Place, right? Like, looks like a normal dude, but that is some other kind of being inside of there.
Right. Makes sense.
And I mean, I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think they're in the cosmos. I think they are in another realm.
I really loved how philosophical the show was. Like, I was not anticipating this at all. The whole idea of like free will versus determinism, and like this idea that Loki sort of feels like his decisions don't matter once he finds out that there's timekeepers that are keeping the sacred time. Like, this is actually a pretty old idea. Like, for centuries in Christian theology, there's this idea that God is outside of time and that like sees time all happening at once. And it's like, well, if that's the case, is free will really exist, or is it just like a construct? Like, could I possibly really do something different if the future has already been seen, even though already is not even the right word. Like, these are really fascinating philosophical things that people have thrown around and bandied around for a long time. And seeing it happen kind of in real time and seeing Loki sort of struggle with what his decisions mean and how his life is determined and feeling inconsequential. And then like this immediate feeling people have, like, who are these timekeepers and why do they get the right to like decide what does and doesn't happen? And how is it right for them to like prune off these timelines just because they don't want it? What is their interest? Who put them in their place? I just found the whole thing to be a fascinating little trip down philosophy world that I thought was not what I saw coming with this show, but I found really stimulating. It reminds me a little bit of why I liked the Vision versus Vision fight, right? Like, it was talking about some deeper philosophical concept than just, hey, punch, punch, punch. And so I kind of enjoyed that aspect of the show so far.
I enjoyed that as well. And I don't know. I never get caught up in the things are predetermined. You still have free will. It's predetermined that you're going to make this choice, but that doesn't mean you're not making that choice.
Oh, see, that always bothered me.
See, no, I have no issue with that.
Because if you can't make, if there's no possibility that you'd make the other choice, then it's not really chosen.
There is a possibility, but you don't do it.
But there's like, but the entity outside of time viewing you knows that you don't, and there's no chance that you could.
Yeah, so that makes it a very boring show for them to watch.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you aren't making that choice. Oh, you know, like, it doesn't. If you were out making decisions, so if somebody videoed an hour of your life and you're just choosing what I'm going to eat for dinner, and you know what you're going to eat for dinner, and you know what TV show you're going to watch, and then somebody else watches that later, that doesn't change that you made those decisions in the moment. It just means that if they watch that video 5 times, it ends the same way every time.
Yeah, but they're similarly bound by time and they are watching a recording. Whereas the TVA is not watching a recording. The TVA is watching it like concurrent with it happening.
Mm-hmm. The problem I have is that there's these, I mean, well, and I don't really have a problem, but I think if people are going to have a problem, it should be that there's these timekeepers that have decided. I mean, so, and I guess that is where the problem is. In this world that they've created, there's these beings that have decided that if you choose to have chicken for dinner, that's the wrong choice. And that version of you should be pruned.
Yeah.
And the version that chooses fish is the correct choice. And if you choose chicken instead of fish, you're going to create a multi-dimensional war.
Right.
So,
well,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm finding that hard to believe, but I'm just rolling with it.
I think my favorite moment in the whole thing was in the cartoon video where they're like, maybe you picked up an infinity stone. Maybe you showed up late to work. And I was like, oh, dude, that guy that just got like tasered out of existence in the corner, he just showed up late for work, you know?
Yeah.
That's what's good. What do you got? I mean, we were kind of led to believe they had to be major events, but it doesn't have to be major events at all. It's can be.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where I'm trying not to think about it too much of like, if you simply, like, are there, I mean, because I always sort of assumed there were like an infinite amount of multiverses where everybody chose chicken instead of fish instead of chicken, or beans. And it just splits off into all these paths from all the little decisions everybody makes every day. So do those exist? And I mean, just come together, like they don't split off that far because they have that one little line across the middle. Maybe that one little line is really a thread with a billion little lines woven together, you know, because they did like have that point in the chapel where it was like this line is, you know, reaching the point that we can't get it back. I don't know.
One, I mean, they're pretty villain. The Timekeepers are villainous anyways because they kill entire universes with one single device, right?
Yeah.
We're talking how many people and
Prune.
beings and pruning, I mean, that's essentially, they're just destroying that. So what's can we like do crazy theories or something? What happens when we get to the red line? Or
Oh,
what's the red line?
Well,
I
they
understand.
said you get the multiverse of madness.
I understood the red line as being, so there's been all this talk. Are timelines the same thing as universes? And my understanding is it's just a variant timeline that is acceptable until the point it hits the red line. And at that point, it becomes a distinct universe.
I like that.
Because that makes sense. Because going back, it frustrates me so much that they proved your stupid tweet right. Um,
Yes, I wasn't going to totally dunk on this, but when we had this fight, me and Twitter 2 months ago, my
but
view of timelines creating multiverses is exactly been proven by this show.
but it doesn't make sense because if this timeline splits off, if timeline A splits off, that's not the same as time traveling from the quantum realm. The Avengers couldn't time travel from there to timeline A or timeline. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but the cool thing is if you
Branch
connect
timeline
the,
one. I mean, Avengers can't go to through. So is that? I don't. I
see,
hate
to
time
me, it
travel
makes
so much.
perfect sense because when you tie time travel to the multiverse, what you do is you allow the same kind of travel that happens in Endgame to become multiversal travel. Because all you have to do is rewind in time to before the branch and then fast forward in time, but go down a different branch. Does that make sense? Like
That's
time travel
such the
becomes multiverse
laziest.
travel.
That's they're throwing all the reasoning into one thing to just shrug away. It's eventually going to become super lazy storytelling. I mean, there's going to be plot holes, and everyone's just going to be like, the timekeepers. So you're Loki taking the Tesseract in 2012 is a Nexus event, which created a Loki variant. And Loki taking the Tesseract forced the Avengers to go back further in time. But they specifically said that was meant to be, and that wasn't a Nexus event. That created another timeline that the Avengers. So how did they go back in time and not create a Nexus event when the only reason they went back in time was because Loki took the Tesseract, which was a Nexus event?
I mean, I think that there is going, I hope that there is going to be better explanation. To me, the biggest problem is Steve going back to Peggy.
It's a
That to
huge, yeah, it's a
me,
huge problem.
that is a
Well,
major one and one that Waldron has specifically said they will be addressing.
yeah, and I mean, maybe later in the series we will see them pruning, or yeah, I mean, we don't know what all
Are
we're
we
gonna.
assuming this is Chris Evans' next appearance that they talked about?
I don't
I
know.
mean, who knows? But I, and that's where, like, I don't know. To me, the hand waving of, well, those things were allowed to happen, or those things were meant to happen. Like, fine, but now you had to throw in that they wouldn't have happened if he hadn't stolen the Tesseract. Like, that was necessary for those branches to happen the way they did. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
I-
what I'm really fascinated about is I would love to find out the TVA is full of crap. In other words, to
yeah,
say like they act like they're pruning all the branches and that's their rhetoric, but that it's way too complex for them. So they're not really pruning all the branches to maintain one timeline. What they're doing is they're just randomly and haphazardly murdering billions and billions of people just because they like being in control and they like being in power. And the reality is there's a ton of multiversal branches that they miss and that are out there and that they've skipped. And it's all just a big propaganda ploy. Like, I do expect that there is going to be a moment where the TVA is shown to have no clothes. Like, these timekeepers are going to be proven to not be everything they crack up to be, that they're super powerful, but they're not nearly as godlike as they make themselves out to be.
So, theory time. We know Judge Renslayer's in the series, okay? And Judge Renslayer, of course, has very, very close ties to King the Conqueror. One, it's insane if King. This is not even close out to the same level as Mephisto. If King doesn't show up, or if there isn't a King nod or something, it's insane. This is it's apples and oranges with Mephisto. So here's the theory. We're talking red lines and stuff. I think if the sacred timeline only has X amount of energy, right? And each branch that splits off takes a little bit of that energy away. So, what I'm suggesting is the timekeepers exist, but they are not in control. It's actually Judge Renslayer and Kang manipulating everything, and they're keeping the one timeline on. So they have all the energy because that energy is either locking the timekeepers away or whoever has the correct control of the timeline. So if these branches go past the red line, then they can't get that energy back. And if so many go past the red line, then the timekeepers are unlocked and Kang can no longer control the timeline.
I think it's interesting. Some people have suggested one of those cartoon timekeepers looks kind of like Jonathan
Kang.
Majors.
Right.
So I like the idea that the timekeepers are Kang and two other people. Maybe Rensler's even one of them. And they have created this whole facade to make sure that the timeline is somehow kept in a way that's advantageous to them, that gives them something they want, that keeps them in a certain amount of power. So I don't know if I'd go as specific as you, Adam, but I definitely think that the idea that all of this is Kang stopping people from stopping him, like keeping his options open, is there. I love the idea too that the Loki they're chasing after ultimately will become the hero of the show, because the TVA is trying to stop Loki, the Loki that they're chasing, from destroying the TVA's control over things. You know.
So you think they're different Lokis? I think it might be the same variant in the future.
Yeah, the only thing, and maybe it's, I don't know. I do think that we're gonna get a kid Loki. I think we're gonna get a lady Loki. I think we're gonna get an old man Loki. Adam seems to be biting his lip really strong here, which seems to suggest to me that episode 2 will tell us something about this.
Yeah, there's been a lot out there. I mean, Adam can keep biting his lip. I've heard a lot that episode 2 episode 2 explores a lot of things previously only explored in fan fiction.
Like Hulk sped.
I have never seen that come up in fan fiction, but maybe I'll spend the afternoon writing some.
There you go. And that's what's interesting about variants. Where's the variant come from? So if you prune a timeline, but the variant managed to leave that timeline, the pruning doesn't kill the variant. Right?
Yeah, no. So this is something that's a fascinating question to me. Why do they arrest and prosecute the variants? Particularly because the variants don't really know what they're doing when they do it. Like Loki didn't know he was destroying the sacred timeline. He just did something instinctively. So if you're gonna nuke that like branch, why not leave Loki in the branch and just nuke him with the branch? Like, why bother to arrest him and then try him and keep all this crazy bureaucracy? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm absolutely with you guys. I think that's all just theater. It's all just theater. And they even, I mean, like, and if you notice, like most of the Loki story, like where he saw, you know, his interaction with Mobius.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, okay. It's too close to Morbius, and I'm just downing myself every time I
If
say
the
it.
stands bring that up once Morbius is released and so I can't believe Sony copied Loki,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my shit.
I just like the words are just too similar. My brain keeps assuming I'm wrong. Even that area, like it was called the theater. Like I feel like so much of this is just for show, like you were saying, and I do think we're gonna have like a man behind the curtain type thing with the timekeepers. It's all theater. And I mean, and I think I think it might be very I think Good Place is a good comparison. I don't know if you guys watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, like, as far as, at some point it's going to be, oh, yeah, nobody actually has won this trial in millions of years. Like, yes, we put everybody on trial and everybody loses, and nobody within the TVA thought that was weird. But
Yeah, I don't think it's a mistake. All the posters and stuff on the wall and the missed minutes, like all of it is an aesthetic choice and makes for a really interesting setting, but I think it's supposed to be a story beat too. These are propaganda people. Like the TVA like espousing ideas that they want you to just accept without questioning. And it's not a mistake that the place is just crawling wall to wall with all of these subliminal messages of do what you're told, go with the machine, follow the leader. Like there's no doubt in my mind it'll be exposed somehow later on the show that there's a bunch of lying going on in this propaganda, which makes me, it's bizarre. I've seen tweets where people are like, oh, so the MCU is just all predetermined by these timekeepers. The movies don't even matter then. Why do I even watch this stuff? Guys, that's what you're supposed to feel. Like the whole first episode wants you to feel antagonized and annoyed by the timekeepers and this self-righteous sacred timeline stuff. The fact that you feel that way is not a fault of the MCU. It's doing exactly what the writers desired for you to feel. How can you not understand this?
That's what haven't. I don't understand the viewpoint. That's like the whole prequel thing. I mean, just because it's a prequel doesn't mean it's not a good story. Of course we know what happens and where it goes, but I mean, it could still be a really good story about one afternoon somewhere fighting Taskmaster.
Yeah. But and you're in the feeling of like, well, that cheapens everything. Yes, that's what Loki felt in that is brilliant writing, that you and the main character felt that at the same moment. You're supposed to. That's the way the thing is designed,
Right. I mean, if they hate this, they're probably going to hate most of the MCU's future because Michael Waldron's essentially Kevin Feige 2.0 now. So just buckle in and enjoy, ladies and gents.
That's right. Doctor Strange 2 is coming from the same brains.
So are you guys a robot?
I don't think so.
That was funny. There were so many one-liners and quips. I'm just like, this is funny.
There were. I mean, I say I'm pretty mad, but like, I mean, I'm just not passionately in love with it. But yeah, what if I am a robot and don't know it?
That's funny.
I don't think I'm a robot.
It reminds me a little bit of MODOK, actually. When all the when they had the 3 or 4 different versions and they're like trying to figure out which ones are the robot ones to kill.
Oh,
and
so you finished.
Oh yeah, I did. And the daughter's just like, no, I'm not a robot. I know it. And you're like, but they would have thought that.
MODOK spoilers, y'all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does the plot of MODOK matter?
I don't know.
It's in one of the time. We haven't even brought up the biggest thing. Speaking of talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. earlier, about how Loki
they
maybe
did them wrong.
decanonizes Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, here's the
I
problem.
kept waiting for that big reveal. Like, I kept waiting for that big reveal. Go on, Caleb.
No, the problem is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. people will never believe it. Like, it does not matter what we tell them. It does not matter. Like, a different Darkhold shows up. Well, the Darkhold transforms, guys. oh, look, Mobius says that Coulson died. Yeah, well, he's just telling Loki that because, like, it doesn't matter. They're never gonna buy. Like, at some point, I'm trying to tell you, I'm not upset with you, Agents of Shield people, but like, at some point, accepting this will make your life better. You will just feel less anxious if you just accept that Agents of Shield is not canon. It isn't, and we can be done with it, you know. I mean, this show is a little problematic in that if the TVA is properly trimming all the sidelines, then the second Agents of Shield started, if it's not main continuity, they should have like destroyed the show, right? Like there should have been season 1, episode 1, there should have been a
How
bomb.
amazing would Loki be if we get a Crisis on? You guys didn't watch Crisis on Infinite Earths, I assume. Did you?
No.
No. There's a moment in Crisis where, can I spoil you for a 2-year-old television
Yeah.
event?
Yes.
There's a moment in Crisis where the cataclysm happens or whatever, and they go from universe to universe, like from at the time DC Universe says Titans. That's how the Titans are involved, and then Brandon Routh's Superman series. They just bounce around from universe to universe to universe to universe to show that it's multiverse. How amazing would it be to have a bunch of secret cameos in one episode where the TVA is just pruning the Defenders verse and Cloak and Dagger and MODOK and Hellstrom? It'd be amazing. Kind of scorched earth on Marvel Television,
Yeah.
but the variant talk that circles back to the variant talk is, I mean, that's like the way to do Secret Wars, right? That's how you bring the ultimate characters into the sacred timeline. That's how you bring Wesley Snipes' Blade into the secret timeline. That's how you bring Evan Peters' Quicksilver into the sacred timeline, right?
I mean, it's interesting. I'm almost, my assumption right now is that Loki destroys the TVA. That by the end of the show, the TVA is going to be in tatters, and that Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, is Strange having to like put out all the fires that are caused because the TVA is no longer like keeping things tidy.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right, we'll have plenty of time to do lots of Loki talk. We'll be here with you guys each week. If you're listening, hey, tell us what you're thinking. Give us your theories. We'd love to hear more about your stuff. One little thing from the mailbag before we wrap up. At Media Thinkings shared with us this question that was put on Twitter. He thought that he'd like to know what we would say. If Thanos were to fight all of the MCU villains teamed up, would Thanos be able to defeat them?
Sorry, what was the first part? All of them what?
So if all the MCU villains teamed up to fight Thanos, so if Thanos had to fight Abomination and Ultron and Yellow Jacket and Ego the Living Planet, and
so essentially all the Avengers but bad people. Yeah. Oh, could Thanos be? I mean, with or without the Infinity Gauntlet?
Yeah, I was about to say, because like Ultron's powered by the Tesseract, doesn't he?
yeah, or how's that work?
Or was he?
The Mind Stone. Ultron has
Mind
Mind Stone
Stone
powers, yeah.
Yeah.
And he
so
was a Celestial.
Yeah.
See, to me, it's a simple math of if the Avengers defeated all of those villains and the Avengers couldn't defeat Thanos, then there's no way the villains they defeated could do a task greater than they could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure.
True. Well, but they have different powers. I mean,
technically Ronan already kind of beat Thanos though, because Thanos wasn't able to get the Infinity Stone from Ronan. Didn't Ronan have the Power Stone?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird, talk about plot holes. The fact that Thanos does not gather more Infinity Stones, like he gives one of them away to Loki so that Loki will get, like, if he already had the Mind Stone, why doesn't Thanos just, like, I guess Thanos is just lazy. Like, why doesn't Thanos just go himself to Earth and pluck the Tesseract out of, like, Sam Jackson's hands, particularly because of the Tesseract. It's the Space Stone. He could have like traveled to Earth, beat up Nick Fury and Hawkeye, grab the Tesseract, and then transport himself out. Like, there's no reason that Thanos should not have 3 or 4 Infinity Stones by the end of Phase 1 of the MCU. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have an answer for the question. And that's a whole podcast episode.
I think the only question would be ego. Like, Ironmonger is not going to go any further than Iron Man. Abomination's not going to do better than the Hulk. Like, those things I don't get. I think ego is interesting because ego actually has like legit celestial power. And so that could be fascinating.
Yeah, and I mean, if you come down to it, the Avengers didn't beat Thanos because they were stronger. They beat him because they had the combination of wits and strength and, you know,
Moral
Strange's ability
fortitude.
to look at a million timelines and, you know,
Yeah.
14 million timelines. And, you know, it wasn't their strength and powers that beat Thanos. There was more to it. And I don't know how cunning. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. I'm going to lean on the I don't think so.
Except for now that we have the TVA could have opened up one of their little portals and just kicked Thanos through it, and the Infinity Gauntlet would no longer have any power. And so that's the scene I want to see is Thanos with the collar on in front of Judge Renslayer. Like, because that's the sense we get, right? Infinity Stones have 0 power in the TVA.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, I mean, the TVA, I think, is the one villain that we've had so far that could totally take Thanos.
That's very true.
And I think that's intentional. I think they wanted to say, hey, Thanos, the Infinity Stones, we're going bigger and better. We're moving beyond that. You know, like that scene was all about getting us to move on to the next stage of the MCU.
If Loki destroys the TVA, would that power disappear, or could somebody new take that power?
I think if I'm Loki, what I do if I destroy the TVA is I put all those Infinity Stones in a bag, and then I start visiting all the various multiverses to try to find where they work, and then I auction them off to the highest bidder, right? Like,
True.
If at the end, what even is the Jeff Lemire? Was that in his Thanos? Where this? It's recently. It might have been Hickman's Infinity too, about the whole idea Infinity Stones only work in their reality. And then
yeah,
Loki eventually travels to the God Quarry, is it, with the witches and stuff? It
yeah,
has this really insane moment. If that makes its way to the show, it's going to be the best Marvel thing ever.
dude. If
I
they
don't
go
think you
to
could tell.
the God
Love it.
Quarry, I thought that was so. I love that whole.
Wasn't it amazing?
comic
I
stuff.
love that. Well, what story was that in?
I think it was Thanos, the
Thanos?
Thanos series. Yeah.
If they managed to, if they managed to go there, Infinity Countdown had something with that too. I just know Mike Diodato was on art.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they go there during this because Loki wants to fix the Infinity Stones or something, that would be insane. Nothing to do with Thanos, really, but
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We will
Yeah.
be here each week. We will talk about Loki. If you want to support the show, you can at patreon.com/Marvel News Desk. Patrons at a certain level get to watch this live if they would like to. We also post the video recording a little bit early and unedited. So usually the way that works is this video happens on Saturday morning for certain patrons live, and then I post it Saturday night for everybody else. And then the final podcast that's edited and audio comes out sometime Sunday or Monday. So I'd love for you guys to support us there. Follow us on social media, share your Loki theories, and we'll see you guys later. All right.
Cool.